It started out like any other Sunday afternoon. Mom and Dad would load us into the car, and we'd head up to 99th Street and Park Avenue to visit Dad's parents and his sister. They lived in the projects, which was always a little jarring. All these people squeezed into floor after floor of tiny railroad apartments. I remember there were incinerators on every level for people's garbage. On the way up to my grandparents' unit, the elevator would stop at different floors. The door would open, and the smell of burnt garbage would drift in from the hallway, mixed in with whatever ethnic food happened to be on the stove in nearby apartments. So the third floor might smell like Cuban rice and beans and burnt garbage. The ninth floor like liver and onions and burnt garbage. Even for a kid from Brooklyn, it was stifling. My grandparents lived on the 11th floor. My grandmother's Puerto Rican food and burnt garbage. My father would knock on the door, and his sister Iris would answer. Titi Iris was a spinster. She lived with her parents in the projects her entire life. She was also my godmother, and I don't know if she took extra pride in the role because she didn't have family of her own, but she'd spoil me and my sisters a little bit on these visits. There'd always be something for us, like a small toy or a pack of baseball cards with a stick of gum. Titi would let us into the apartment, leaving the incinerator stench in the hallway. And my grandmother, Abuela, would come out of the kitchen and give us kisses, lots of them. She moved slowly because she was very diabetic and her eyesight was bad. But she would laugh and exclaim things that I only sort of understood. Abuela's world basically ended at the front door. Titi Iris did the shopping, and my grandfather would always be going out throughout the week and coming back with guests who'd stay for dinner. So she was essentially chained to the kitchen. But like my father, she was a joyous person. She'd always have 2 or 3 parrots or parakeets in a cage in the living room, and there must have been 50 plants throughout the house. She'd close all the windows and let the birds fly out, and they'd be flying around while she'd be watering the bright green plants, singing in Spanish to them and to the birds in her beautiful voice. Eventually, my grandfather, Abuelo, would get up from his rocking chair, all pissed off, and he'd huff and puff, "Juanita!" and tell her to shut the damn cage. And she'd just chuckle and say, okay, and eventually put the birds back. I never remember Abuelo coming to answer the door, ever. He was always in the living room, sitting stoically on the couch or on his rocking chair, and we'd have to march in and give him a hug and a kiss. 30 years earlier, he'd arrived in the U.S. with his young family and gotten a shift at the Hershey's chocolate factory. A year into the job, while he was chopping blocks of chocolate, something took off one of his hands, and the factory said, okay, I guess we need to find someone else. He had never really been able to work since. And now he was an old man, lording over this tiny apartment, his right wrist wrapped in a leather pouch tucked close to his chest.